Okay, Letitia, you can go ahead and get started.
Thank you. So I've gone ahead and placed the link in the chat as well as the directions are on the screen for you. So in the meantime, go ahead, hop on the Nearpod. This presentation, because we are discussing Nearpod, it's best to like experience it for yourself. So go ahead and join in that Nearpod presentation. You'll notice that when you do join, there's an activity there for you to complete, and then I'll start to move the slides. And so just to give people time to get in, get accustomed if this is your first time using Nearpod, actually using the tools, going ahead and like allowing you to fill that out. And so then we'll actually like begin the rest of the main presentation when the time expires, which we have about 6 minutes. And I'll have some music playing in the background and then we'll get started. In the meantime, if you do have questions, go ahead and place those in the chat. I can also see your responses. And so thank you for sharing those as well.
She was walking in the street, looked up and noticed he was nameless. He was homeless, she asked him his name and told him what hers was. He gave her a story about a life with a glint in his eye and a corner of a smile. One conversation, a simple moment, the things that change us if we notice when we look up sometimes. They said I would never make it, but I was built to break the mold. The only dream that I've been chasing is my own. So I sing a song for the hustlers trading at the bus stop, single mothers waiting on a check to come, young teachers, student doctors, sons on the front line knowing they don't get to run. Let's go up to the underdog. Keep on keeping it what you love. You'll find that someday, soon enough, you will rise up, yeah. She's riding in a taxi back to the kitchen, talking to the driver about his wife and his children, on a run from a country where they put you in prison for being a woman and speaking your mind. She looked in his eyes in the mirror and he smiled. One conversation, a single moment, the things that change us if we notice when we look up sometimes. They said I would never make it, but I was built to break the mold. The only dream that I've been chasing is my own. So I sing a song for the hustlers trading at the bus stop, single mothers waiting on a check to come, young teachers, student doctors, sons on the front line knowing they don't get to run. Let's go up to the underdog. Keep on keeping it what you love. You'll find that someday, soon enough, you will rise up, yeah.
All right, that was the signal to let us know that our time is up. Um, Thank you to each of you for responding on the Nearpod. So for those of you who are new to Nearpod, at the moment, I am displaying the teacher view. So I actually had my other, I have two monitors in addition to my laptop. And so on my other monitor, I had another window up so I could see all of your responses. And so if you notice in the chat, I was just like, highlighting some things that you shared with me. And so this is a great activity to do with students. Part of what I do is I teach digital citizenship to all of our TK5 students at my school. And so I use the Nearpod to do a bunch of that. And what's nice about Nearpod is because I can insert these links to outside platforms as well. But in Nearpod, the Draw It slide, which is what you were using currently, I'm able to create this chart. So I created this chart that you were filling out actually on Google Slides. And then I uploaded that as my background image for the Draw It slide, so that way you could go ahead and complete that. And this is a great strategy to use with your students, so that way you're giving them time, whether you're in person or online, giving them time to get settled, join in on the presentation. Also, it's a great way to, use some SEL, right? Check in with our students. This is a great way to build relationships. And so I saw that I had a Disney lover in here, just like me. A lot of you love to travel. Some of you are expecting new members to your family. And so this is a great way too for you to have all that information so that way you can connect with your students more. So I love setting this up. Even as a presenter, I typically use Nearpod to present. Lately, I've been also using Wakelet, but when I do use Nearpod, I always set up that first slide as an activity slide. It's never my title slide because I just don't want students or participants just sitting there and waiting for everyone else. So this gives you something to do. There's other options too. Slides that are in Nearpod, there's a matching game that they could play. Like I said, you can also link it to an outside source. So sometimes I might link this to a Padlet or link it to a Wakelet. But it's always asking students to share something about themselves. And I also do that when I'm presenting. So thank you again for those of you, as you see, like the responses are still coming in. So thank you for sharing that in this space. I'm gonna go ahead and now, so I'll toggle between the student view and the teacher view as we go through this. And I do that by, what's nice is I always have 2 tabs up for the Nearpod. And I typically will have, like I said, I have 2 monitors. So I'll typically have the teacher view on one monitor. And when I'm presenting to students, I always just have the student view. I never let them see what everyone is responding to. Now, there is a way that on this, with these slides, that that I do love to share. So there's a way that you can do that if you, again, if you are new to Nearpod. So you'll notice currently I'm sharing the teacher view. I can click on an individual person's response. And so I'm going to go ahead and share this out. So you'll notice what happens on your end. So when I click share, what happens is then you should see on your view that person's response. You'll also notice that it does not have the creator's name, right? The person who, the author. And so Nearpod is really big on amplifying student voice, but allowing them to do it in a safe space so that way they're not being ridiculed, and that they can do it anonymously. Now, I will say this, as and again, I work with TK5, but I find that this helps no matter what who your audience is. But as I go through my lesson, I make sure that I count how many slides will require my students to respond. And from those slides, I then divide those slides by how many students I have. And I want to make sure that I'm going to share a slide or a response from each of my students, right? So if I have 20 students and I have 5 slides in there where they're going to have to respond, whether it's open-ended or on a draw slide like you just saw, then I'm going to make sure that for each slide, I'm going to at least share 4 of my students' responses. And I'm going to make sure that I cover all of them. So just another tip that I love to point out. The other thing too is that, again, if you're looking at my screen, there is a hide student names option at the bottom. I love to turn that on as well. So especially when I'm presenting, I like to hide our participants' names. If you do end up showing your teacher screen when you are with students, then I strongly advise you to go ahead and hide student names. But again, what's nice about Nearpod is I can have 2 tabs open, and you'll also notice, so now I'm going back to my first tab, it's still on teacher view, but you'll notice in the top right-hand corner, there's an S. And again, this is on my end, not for you as a student. But when I click that, now it will change it to student view. So this is great, again, when I'm presenting, so that I can toggle back and forth, so that way you can see the student view as well as what the teacher view is. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and move forward. Actually, what do I wanna do? Yeah, go ahead and move forward. All right, so we are here to talk about how you can use Nearpod to move from passive to active learning. And before we move forward, there is a great thing that you can do on Nearpod, which I find is amazing, but you can actually go ahead and take notes, okay? So I'm gonna show you again. This should be your student view, what you see on your screen. You'll notice that there's a paper and a pencil in the top right-hand corner of your view. If you click that, you have 3 options to send an editable PDF of all the slides that we're going to cover today. Okay, so you can send it to your email. You have the option of sending it to your Drive or to your OneNote. Once you select where you want to send that editable PDF, and you give it permission, then a space will open up so that way you can take notes. What also happens is not only do you get that editable PDF with all the slides that we cover, but any notes that you take will also show up on that editable PDF. Now, two things. The first one is, notice how I said all the slides that we cover. So let's say that you have created a Nearpod deck where there are 30 slides, but in live participation, which is what we're doing right now, we only get through 15. Only those 15 slides that I actually shared and exposed you to will actually be on your editable PDF, not the remaining 15. So any slides that you do not get to will not be on that editable PDF. The second thing I want to point out about the notes and the notes appearing on your editable PDF is that one tool that I love to do, and I do this with my 2nd through 5th grade, is that I teach them how to take notes. And then, because they're sharing it, we're a Google Drive school, so I have them send their editable PDF to their Drive. And at the conclusion of our class, I tell them they're going to go ahead and submit those notes, those editable PDF notes that they receive. They're going to submit them on our Google Classroom. So what I do is I set up our Nearpod as an assignment when we're finished. And once they get their editable PDF, and they can go take a look at them as well, but they're going to submit that editable PDF. They're going to submit it as their turn in as their assignment for that Nearpod assignment that I've placed on Google Classroom. And I do that because I want to see what notes they're taking. And a lot of times I'm being intentional about how I want them to take notes, what I want them to really focus on when they're taking notes. And so I want to see what they're doing. So that's another great tool that you can use, I believe, no matter. I started again with 2nd grade. You can definitely do this from 2nd on up to even college, right? That have your students to take notes as they're going through and then submit those so that way you can see what notes they were taking. What's also nice about that editable PDF for you is that any links that that we explore during that Nearpod is hyperlinked on that editable PDF, so you can always access that as well. All right, I know I said a mouthful. Are there any questions about any of what I just said? And good morning to those of you that are joining in. Our moderator has so graciously placed the link for you in the chat, so that way you can be a participant in our Nearpod presentation. Okay, I'm going to go ahead. Oh, taking notes are a great feature. Absolutely, Sage. It is amazing, especially when I love using them because it's a great opportunity to practice what that means to take notes, and really teaching our students not to try to type up everything that I'm saying or what they're seeing. So it's a great strategy to start with our students. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move forward. So all this time you've heard me talking, and you probably have no idea who I am, although I noticed some of you were in my sessions yesterday, so welcome back. But my name is Leticia Citizen. I am an I-4 coach at Hawthorne School in Beverly Hills Unified School District in Southern California. Also, I have started a group with 5 other educators called Equity in Action California, where we are about really working with conference, organizers, and even working with teachers about evaluating the spaces that we create for our students to enter and for teachers to enter. And we want to make sure that those spaces are welcoming, to identify who's in that space, who's missing from that space. And then also during this pandemic season, I started an LLC with 2 other educators. So that's been an adventure in itself. You'll also notice that I am an ambassador and a trainer for many platforms, including Nearpod, because I really feel that they do a phenomenal job of allowing our students to voice and share their stories, as well as giving them, allowing us to give them feedback, those platforms feedback, so that way they can enhance their tool. So if you have any questions about any of those, please definitely reach out to me. I can help you out on that. I'm also on Twitter. Love to connect with people on Twitter. So you can find me at City Coach. Also, that's my Instagram, but I'm more of a Twitter person than an Instagram. So I would love to connect with you. All right, so now you've heard who I am. Let's see, come on, work. This is one thing about having like two the same, because, oops, sorry, because then it like delays. All right, now that you've heard who I am, I've given you this space, this collaborative space, to go ahead and share who you are. So go ahead and share your name, your grade, your location. Again, if you are new to Nearpod, to do that, you'll notice that there's a white rectangular space at the bottom of your screen. Also, before you start typing, when you start typing, do not press enter until you are completely done typing what you're typing. So this is not one of those spaces that if you press enter or control or shift or anything, it's not going to move to the next line. It's just all one stream. So do not press enter or post until you are absolutely ready to submit your responses. So go ahead and share, again, your name, your grade, your location, and then we will see this populate in this space. All right, we've got Wayne in Ontario, Oregon. Oh, my daughter goes to University of Oregon. I don't know how far Ontario is from Eugene. Bethany, first year college students. Ooh, love that. Idaho, Maine. Wow, we have people like everywhere. Someone from Salem, Oregon, Spokane, Washington, UCLA. Oh, love the picture, Elaine. Kindness Matters, Kara. So as you are responding, thank you for sharing where you all are. Canada, oh my gosh, this is awesome. I will say, this has been one of the things about joining on conferences virtually, that I feel like it reaches a wider audience. And so sharing and learning with educators globally has been pretty awesome. So I wanted to show you what it looks like from the teacher view. Now, this is a huge thing when you use this slide. It's a great opportunity to talk about digital citizenship with our younger students. I would hope you wouldn't have to repeat that in college, but if you do, great opportunity time to do that. Can students edit their posts? Thank you. That's a great question, Kara. I actually planted her to ask that question. No, students cannot edit their posts. So once they post, it's there. Okay, so that's one thing to point out. Thank you for that, Kara. Or I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Kara or Kara. Let me know. Yes, okay. So another thing I want to point out is that when you set up this slide, or when you go to make it live, it does ask you as the teacher whether or not you want to moderate this slide. So for you, I went on ahead and just let you go ahead and post. But you do have the option to set it up so that way you see the responses first, just in case you have some students who have brain farts, even though you have those conversations about like, this is a space where we want to be respectful, responsible, and safe. You have some who at least, I know in K-12 that try you, and so they want to test the limits, and so they'll go ahead and try to, upload an image that's inappropriate or try to type something that's inappropriate. So as the teacher, you would see it first. Now you'll notice right now I'm showing, if you're looking at my shared screen, I'm showing you the teacher view. You'll notice that one, again, I've hidden the names, but two, you'll notice there's a trash can right there. So let's say that if I did not moderate this and the student had an opportunity to go ahead and put something that was inappropriate, I could immediately go ahead and click the trash. And it says that this card was deleted. So that will also show on your view. What's nice is that later on, well, one, I can say like, hello, Laura, that was really inappropriate. I need you to go ahead and make a better choice. Can you respond again? And then the other part of that too is that later on in the reports, so what's nice is that all the responses that students make, whether it's on the Draw It slide, on this collaborative slide, go into my reports as a teacher. This card that I deleted will actually still show up on my teacher reports. So if I have a student who continuously makes those choices to be unsafe and irresponsible and disrespectful, then when I decide, to meet with that student individually, or whether I want to include parents, if I want to include admin as well, so that way we can work on ways to help our student make better decisions, then I can still pull that up in the reports and show that, hey, here are your cards that you've been typing that have not been model digital citizens, right? And I can always bring it back as well. What's nice is that even if I am moderating it, I don't have to approve it for the rest of you to see, but it will still remain again in my report. So that way, if I need this as evidence or to have, to have that conversation with students and include their parents or whatnot, then it's always there for me to access. Excuse me. So just a couple of things I wanted to point out to you. All right. So thank you again for sharing. We're going to go ahead and move forward. So let's go ahead and take a poll. Go ahead and tell me, what is your experience with Nearpod? Do you use it all the time? You've used Nearpod a few times, you've heard of it, but haven't used it, near what? Or, you've never heard of it. What does that look like for you? So this is the poll slide, and I guess I should show you on my end. This is what it looks like on my end. So again, the student names would be here, but I've hidden them at this time. I can see your responses in real time. You'll notice on the left-hand side, it shows me a pie graph. It lets me know not only what responses you've given, but if someone has not responded. And then what's nice, because again, I typically don't show the teacher view for students. I can go ahead, oh, somebody's still responding. So go ahead and make your final responses in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So what's really cool is that then I can click share, and you'll notice on your student view that you can see how we responded as a class. And then you'll also see the response that you gave. Again, this is a great opportunity if you are working with younger students to have, a quick conversation about like data. So what do you notice? What, mathematical, emphasis can you make, right? Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Bethany and Elaine. So you can have those conversations for students to go ahead and point out, as a mathematician, what can you state about this, right? And if they say like, oh, well, I noticed that I've heard of Nearpod but haven't used it, is the majority. Well, how do you know this? And they can have those conversations of, well, I noticed in the pie chart, there's that bigger piece. I can also notice on the side that it gives me the number. It's, the first one that we see. So you can have those many conversations, but you'll also see that again, because Nearpod is really about honoring student voices and what they share, that they only see their own answer. And what's nice about the poll is there's no right or wrong. So it looks like from here that the majority of you have heard of Nearpod but haven't used it, followed by there's a couple of you who've used it a few times. And then we have a smaller portion who use Nearpod all the time. Awesome, I do too. And that's not to throw shade at anyone who's not using it all the time. So I'm glad that all of you are here. I'm hoping that you at least take away one, if not more, ideas on how to like enhance your experience with Nearpod. So here we go. All right, so first up, what we're gonna learn together is voice and choice. So we're gonna look at that first. And here we go. So just to give you some quick background, I love using this, this infographic about why voice and choice matters, right? That the only real education is the one that fully embraces the learner's choice and voice. You'll notice that on the left-hand side, you've got learner choice there, and on the right-hand side, you got some learner's voice. I'll give you a minute to go ahead and just read that for yourself. All right, and now that you've taken a look at that. So with voice and choice, how can you do this with Nearpod? So there's a couple of slides and you've already kind of used several of them. So, you know, when we first started this Nearpod presentation, you were able to use the draw it slide. It allows students to draw, to type, to even upload images so they have choice in how they want to respond. We've used the collaborative slide. And again, students can upload images and upload text. Then we have the poll slide, and I'll show you how you can use the poll slide to vote to determine the lesson direction. So you've already done a poll where you've told me, you know, your experience with Nearpod, but now we're going to take a look at how you can actually use that for students to drive the direction of the lesson. And then lastly, the open-ended slide, which you haven't had an opportunity to use yet, but we will. But on the open-ended slide, students have choice in adding text and also adding audio, which is really cool. So let's go ahead and move forward with this. And so let's go ahead and take a poll. And again, this is now I'm going to demonstrate how you can use this to, you know, let students have voice and choice in the matter. So which type of slide would you like to try out now? The collaborative slide, the open-ended slide, or the drawing slide? Go ahead and make your choice. And again, I'll show you what it looks like on the teacher view. All right, so it looks like most of you want to try the collaborative slide. So here is where this takes planning ahead of time. If you are going to set up a poll to ask students where they want to move to next, okay? So one thing I did not point out is that on the teacher view, you'll notice in the middle of my screen, I can click that arrow up and I can see all the slides that I have created for this Nearpod. Okay, so they're all in order. The blue, the one that's like outlined in blue, that's the one that tells me like, this is where you currently are. So when I set up poll slides for students to then choose what direction we're going into next, like I did with you, right? What slide do we want to use? That means that the next couple of slides need to be those exact slides. So you'll notice on my screen that I have the collaborative board, I have the open-ended question, and I have the draw it. What's really cool about Nearpod is that while I do have these in order, I can add slides at any point. I can go down here. So let's say as I'm going through my lesson, I notice that my students, like if I'm like giving them information or allowing them to like consume information, I'm like, oh yeah, they've had enough of this. Let me like move to another slide, you know, bypass like 3 through 4. Then I can come to my little hopper, that's what it's called. And then I can shoot out like the other slide that I want them to do. Don't answer those yet. So based off of your response, again, as a class, we've said that you want to experience the collaborative slide. So I'll come down to my hopper. The collaborative slide is here. Actually, it was next, and I'll shoot that out. And so again, if we're doing this lesson in class, now I want you to share your thoughts about the quote below. The only real education is one that fully embraces learner choice and voice by Jackie Gerstein. Go ahead and give me your thoughts about this quote. And so again, if we're doing this lesson in class and we're talking about voice and choice right now, or if you have any other thing that you want to talk about, this is a great way. We did the poll. The majority said that you wanted to practice the collaborative slide. So I'm giving you that opportunity to do that. But with students, I would say, what's the next slide we want to work on? I shoot it out. And so then you start to see their answers come in. Again, you have that option of setting it up so that way it's moderated. You see the responses first, or you can just make it a free for all. One thing I didn't point out too is that you'll notice on your end as well as a student participant that there are hearts at the bottom. I really am intentional about directing students when to like those hearts, right? Because we're sadly in a space where students are all about the likes, right? And they internalize that as that means that you like me more, right? Their self-worth is dependent on those likes. I instruct my students to not heart anything. And instead I will say, all right, now that you all have responded, I want you to read each other's responses. And I want you to maybe put a heart on the one that said something very similar to what you said. Or I might direct them to put a heart on the one who said something that, man, you didn't even think of. And you're like, yo, that is awesome. This is great. I wish I would have said this. Or I might tell them, click the heart next to at least 3 responses that, like if we're posing an argument or you're making an inference, or I said like provide some evidence on why this is, so-and-so happened, because I might share a primary source here. This is a great time where I might say like, read all the responses and heart 3 peers' responses that said something that, was complete opposite of you, or something that you did not say. And then what I will do is then on the next slide, it will be an open-ended slide. And I'll tell them, now tell me why you hearted, like who, or because again, they can't see it, but why you hearted those 3 cards. And so this is a great way, again, to like model how it's not about the likes, that they do serve a purpose, and how to be who hearted the teacher cannot see who hearted the responses. And so this is why, like, when I tell them to heart it, then I ask them to tell me which one they hearted, because they can't see the name, right? But I'll say like, tell me what they said and then tell me why. So that's why it's always good to follow up a poll slide, or sorry, a collaborative slide with that free space slide. And students, they can handle it. They like, again, I use this with TK5, but for my 2nd through 5th, I have them rolling to do that. And they're excited about it, to tell me like why they hearted a card. All right, so thank you for all of these responses. Now I'm going to go back to the poll slide just because I need to see what our second response was. So after the collaborative slide, you wanted to try the open-ended slide. So again, I'm going to come down to my hopper. I'm going to share out the open-ended question one. So now what I want you to do is I want you to take a look at, let me go to the teacher view. I want you to go ahead. Now, what's nice is that if you do provide an image, and you'll notice the image is in the top right-hand corner, as a student, you can click on that to make it larger, so that way you can reference it again. But now what I want you to do in this open-ended space is I want you to share ways you fully embrace learner choice and voice in your classroom environment. You may use text or audio to share your response. And so on your slide, you should see where it says ready, enter your answer. You can just start typing, or you have the record audio at the bottom. And so go ahead and take time to do that. And even try out the audio one. It's pretty cool. Rayla. Sorry, my student, my child. She's like gonna be late for Zoom class. Oh, yours doesn't show the record audio. Huh. That's new. I just need to see who that is. Cynthia, is that who that was? I think that's Cynthia. Yeah, Cynthia, I'll find out why. Yes, on the open-ended slide, you do have the option to edit. So once students submit, it will say, you know, edit the slide, which is something that I always have to remind my younger students about. I'll say like, I'm a citizen, I submit it, but it says I need to edit. And I'm like, no, that's just giving you an option. So I just have to remind myself, what are you waiting on? No kisses. Oh, sorry. I need permission in your pod. Yeah, try that, Cynthia. Typically, when you go to click on it, it will ask if Nearpod has permission, and you can, so I'm using a Mac, and I don't know what it looks like on other laptops, but if I go up to the bar, there's a little a little lock. If you click that, like I can change my permissions to say allow for the microphone, see if that works. Okay. To help, like using branching scenarios, badge credential. Oh, cool. Awesome. So again, as the teacher, I see all the responses. I do have the option, you'll notice if you're looking at my screen, the red button on the right-hand side, that I could go ahead and share that out so that way other students can see that response. I would say make sure that students have all responded, because if you share, then it takes away their ability to continue to type. So I usually like do a countdown with my students. I will say that in Nearpod, for the poll, for the draw it slide, for the open-ended slide, and yeah, for those three, again, for the open-ended, which is what you're working on now, the poll and the draw it slide, you can set a timer. And you get to like set how many minutes and how many seconds you want it to be. So you do have that option as well. And so there are some slides that I might do that for students, and then others I won't set the timer. All right, so thank you all for those responses. So then the last slide that that the majority of the class agreed on was then to try, I guess it's just the draw it slide that's left. Yeah, the draw it slide. And so again, I would share that out with students. And here's a way where I took an image of, or I took a screenshot of that infographic, and excuse me, I'm directing students to highlight 2 ways you want to increase student choice and voice with your students. Now let's say the directions are in the way, you'll notice that there's a blue square on the left-hand side with an arrow. If you click that, the directions will disappear. And again, if you're new to this, you'll notice that there are drawing tools at the bottom of your screen. The third one is the highlighter. You get to choose the color, and then you can go ahead and highlight or circle those responses. Let's see. So Wayne asks, how much time does it take you to develop a 2-hour-long Nearpod experience for the classroom? Wayne, it depends. So if I'm going to use, let me just show you very quickly while people are responding. In Nearpod, you have access to the Nearpod library. So a lot of times I might, like with lessons that I'm teaching my students, I might go find a lesson in the Nearpod library. And what I can do, let's just see, is current event. I'll take a lesson, and what you do is then you added, so what's nice is I can preview it, right? And even if the bulk of it I want to use, but there's some things I don't want to, I'll add it to my lessons. So now that lesson that I just took from the library is now in my library. So I'll show you. So this is my personal library. If I'm going to manipulate that lesson, I always suggest to people, as a rule of thumb, to go ahead and duplicate it first. So that way you always have the original, and then you can make your changes on the new one. Now, if I'm going to take an already made lesson and then make changes to it, it typically doesn't take me too long, because I already know, like I already have a skeleton of what I want how that lesson to go. It's just developing your workflow, right? So I'll go ahead, just in case some of you have never seen how I can build in Nearpod. So what it does is, this is a lesson again that I've taken from the Nearpod library. Now it's in my library. I went on ahead and I'm duplicating it. And so when it goes to duplicate, it shows me all the slides that are in that lesson. So what I do is I go through and I'll take out the one. So let's say I don't want this collaborative board, I can click on it and it gives me the option to delete it. So I go through and you can delete more than one at a time. So I delete the ones that I want, and then let's say I want a slide between 4 and 5. I would click in between slide 4 and 5. And so what's nice is that Nearpod has separated the slides between content. So that's where students are going to consume information, or if I'm going to have them do an activity. So that's all those slides that we've been working on. Again, if I already know what I want to put in those slides, it doesn't take me very long. Now, if I'm building from scratch, I always like to build from scratch in Google Drive on Google Slides. And I do that because Nearpod has, so let's see, I just want to take a note slide that I haven't done yet. Presentation. So I can take an already, like let's say I have slide decks that I've used, for a while. So let's say this slide deck. And this is one that I've had for a while. What's nice is that in Google Slides, for an add-on, you can get the Nearpod add-on. And once you get the Nearpod add-on, I'm going to click Open Nearpod. What happens is it brings all those Nearpod slides right here to Google Drive. I find that my workflow is much faster when I do it from Google Slides, even if I'm starting from scratch. And so, I already know like what my backgrounds are going to be and stuff. And again, I've already sketched out how I want the lesson to go. So once I get into a groove, I don't know, it can take anywhere from like 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how like detailed I'm being, or you know, I'm type A, so I want like everything, and I want like the slides to match, and that's just like a me thing. Then yeah, anywhere from, I would say like 30 minutes, but me being who I am, 45 to an hour maybe. Let's see. But again, that's if, I always suggest to people, like, one, the first time that you're using Nearpod, go to the Nearpod library and take from there, and then manipulate that one. And then secondly, go through your drive or go through your PowerPoints and find those. Now, let's say you are using PowerPoint. Let me point this out. If you are using PowerPoint, there's no extension there's no Nearpod extension for PowerPoint. You have to then build in Nearpod. Okay, so that means once I'm in my Nearpod account, when I come up to slide and click lesson, this is like my building board, my building platform. You'll notice right here, it says drag and drop. So you can drag and drop files, but I can also upload files, and you'll see it allows me to bring in PNGs, PowerPoints, and PDFs. I will say this, if you try to upload a PowerPoint and it says it's too big, sometimes because of all the images and the stuff that we have in that PowerPoint, you might have to break that PowerPoint into two, meaning your original PowerPoint that you have when you're in Microsoft, you're gonna need to copy it, and then like on the first, like your original, or maybe copy it 2 times, so you always have your original, but like on those other 2 copies, like take away the second half of those slides, and on the second one, take away the first half of those slides, so that way you're going to upload them in 2 separate files. And if it's still too big, then you might have to break it down into 3. So it's not that like it's impossible, it's just that at one time you can only upload, I don't know if it even says it on here, it might tell you like, you know, 20 megabytes or something like that. Like it tells you, it'll say like, uh-oh, too big of a file. So that just means you need to break it down in smaller groups and then bring them in. And then you would build in this space. Let's see, have you used Nearpod for, oh my God, yes. So like right now, I actually took the day off to take care of some things besides presenting. So I set up, so here's another cool thing. Let me just point this out. You got me excited. What's cool is that Nearpod even has like a subplan option. So that's what I did. I set up subplans. And when I do that, and it like walks you through this whole process, but I set up all my Nearpods today that my students are completing. They're all set at student pace. And so what that means, let me just show you, that when you hover over a lesson, it gives you the option to do live participation, which is what we're doing right now, meaning like the teacher controls moving the slides, or you can do student pace. And in student pace, students are moving the slides on their own. What's nice too is that like right now, because I'm here presenting, let me see, I have 3rd grade today, I can actually go to the lessons that my students are working on today, click on student pace. It shows me the codes that I've launched for those lessons, right? And then when I click on it, you'll notice that then I have the option to view progress. I can see what they're doing still in real time, and even after they finish. So once I go here, it like shows me who signed in, and I can like go through each slide to see their responses. So you can definitely do asynchronous. That's what I'm doing like right now with students. And so I can see that. And so students control it. What's also nice too about student pace, let me just show you this, is that when I go to student pace, you'll notice right here, it says require student responses and prevent skipping. So for a very long time, we kept asking Nearpod, we're like, hey, when we do student pace, students could just skip slides, right? And they're not like answering. And so we kept begging for them to like do something that will prevent students from skipping. So now I think by default, it might be set to off, so you would have to set it on. And you can easily do that as well when you come into your settings. Even this is where you enable student notes, but you can set it up so that way it's automatically on all the time, and it prevents students from skipping those slides. So they have to answer on, if it's an open-ended slide, if it's a poll, if it's drawing, whatever that is, students have to respond to it. So that's another great thing about asynchronous. Okay. Thanks. I noticed that there's been a lot of college level presentations. Yeah. I would definitely say, Wayne, if Nearpod is really big about like listening to teacher feedback. And if you reach out to them and let them know, there might be something that comes out of that. Like either they'll get like their team to work on that, or they might like set up something with you and have that conversation, but they're always open to new ideas. So definitely reach out to them. But again, I always tell teachers, I know that all of us have either Google slide decks or PowerPoint presentations that we're always using. Put those into Nearpod and add those, I always call them accountability slides, add those accountability slides, right? So have that open-ended, have that poll, have, there's so many. I'm even sending them to a website that you want them to check out, like Flipgrid. You can bring all of that into Nearpod. And so it's a great way to do that. Okay, I think I answered all the questions. If I didn't, then please, by all means, let me know. So let's go ahead. I'll come back. Oh, awesome. Thank you for sharing all of your responses here. Awesome. Okay. So let's go ahead and go forward. All right, so we just got on one. All right, so the next one is differentiated instruction. I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit. So what is differentiated instruction? I'm quite sure I'm preaching to the choir, but just in case, as a refresher, you've got, improving learning outcomes, increasing engagement, right? Increasing self-awareness, inspiring the love of learning, all those great things. And so how do we do that with Nearpod? These are the 3 ways that I love using Nearpod to differentiate. So active activities using Nearpod, creating learning paths where you create multiple lessons to address student needs. HyperDocs, where it shifts instructions to students exploring the content prior to your direct instruction. And then lastly, creating choice boards. So I want to go through and show you some of those examples. So first up is a learning path. Again, because I do work with TK5, sometimes I have students, or a lot of times I have students, depending on the data, and it's showing me where they are and if they still need help on certain content or certain standards, but not with others. But I don't want to make all my students do the exact same thing, right? So what's cool is that you can set up learning paths for students. So that way, I might say, all right, Cynthia and Bethany, you are part of the Square group. And so I want you to go ahead and click on that square, and it's going to send them to a student-paced Nearpod. Oh, of course, I didn't check the links. But it's supposed to send them to a student-paced, let's see if the other one works. A student-paced lesson. All right, well, the idea is that it would send them to a student-paced lesson that they're going to work on together. So while they'll both click on that link, whether they're in person, and even if they're doing this virtually, right? I'm going to put them into breakout rooms, but they're going to both click on that hyperlink, and it's going to take them to a student-paced lesson, and they're going to work on it together, but they're both putting their answers in. Okay, what's nice, again, I mentioned this earlier where I said, this is a great opportunity for you to take, if you have that math lesson and it's on, I don't know, shapes or adding fractions, I can take that same lesson, duplicate it a couple of times. So maybe I'm going to have 3 groups. I'm going to duplicate it 3 times, and in each one, I'm going to take out the things that I don't need for the set of group students, and I might add some things too. So that way they're still working on the same standard, but they're getting the things that they need. So that's a great way to leverage Nearpod to go ahead and create those learning paths and really meet your students' needs. The next one is for HyperDocs. And so here's one that you can take a look at. It is student paced. Let me see, there we go. So students would enter their name, but what's nice is it just walks them through this process. So again, they're doing this independently, it's self-paced. And so for my HyperDocs, I always start off with that essential question, and it's gonna walk them through the different stages of the HyperDoc. And they're, it's gonna send them to spaces, it's gonna ask them to annotate primary sources. And at the end, so again, see, I can't move on because it needs me to respond. So as a student, I just wanna show you so you can see. All right, so then, I'm gonna, in all the steps, all the content that they need to consume, all the processing that they're going to do, the creation, everything is going to be done through Nearpod. So that's a great way for you to use Nearpod as HyperDocs. Here's another example of one of a HyperDoc. Again, it's set up as student pace, and you can take a look at those as well, but it's going to walk them through it. And again, any articles that I need them to access, I can put that into Nearpod, and they don't have to go anywhere else, and it's all done right here, and it keeps them in this space. Deep. Okay. So then the next way that you can do it is choice boards. And so with choice boards, here's an example of one where, and again, you can use any platform that you want. So I love using Buncee, so I use that. If you want to use Google Slides, or you just want to use a doc, whatever tool that you want to use, please use it. Again, I work with younger students, so I have to make it as engaging as possible. But creating choice boards, what you do is you'll notice I have the title of the lesson. So these were science lessons that I found in Nearpod. And I make sure that they meet our standards for that grade level. I type out the title, and then what I do is I go to each of these lessons, that you can't see me, the solid investigation, and I set it up as student pace. And I take those codes. Remember, I showed you this earlier. I go to student pace, I take that code, and I then copy it and and then I copy it and place it here. So now what I do is I set up this board. I usually have anywhere from 5 to 6 activities. You can even do more, even if it's just 2, as long as it's more than 1, students have a choice. But I typically do like around 6 activities. I give my students 2 weeks to work on it, and they're doing it at their own pace, but they're making sure, and they can do it in any order that they want to. They just make sure that they're going to complete all 6 of those. So when I'm setting it up on my end, something that I wanted to point out, let me just do a new one, is that when you set up student pace, you can control how long you want that code to be active. So what's really nice is that now, and this was it's been like a year that they've added this edition, but you can set up that student pace code to work from anywhere from a day to all the way to an entire year. And so you would just like select those dates of how long you want it to last. Now, I did not mention this earlier, but with live codes, like currently what we're doing, that code is only good for 14 days. What's nice about that code that lasts for 14 days, so let's say that if we were in a class together and we did not finish today's lesson, then tomorrow when we meet and I go to do that same lesson again, what's nice is I'm going to use that same code and it will place us exactly where we left off yesterday. So that works for live participation. and they only last for 14 days. But for student PACE, it can be anywhere from a day to 365 days. So on choice boards, I go ahead and I just place those codes there. Students go and enter them. What's nice is that students do not need a Nearpod account. And so they would just go ahead and enter the code like we did today, where I had you go to join.nearpod.com, enter the code, and then you would place into our presentation. Same thing works for student PACE codes. So that's one way that you can do choice boards with Nearpod. So let me go ahead and check in. Are there any questions? I know there was a lot of information. I know we're nearing the end of our time. But I just want to check in very quickly to see. I know people have been utilizing the chat, so thank you for that. And if there are any other questions that I've missed before moving on, looks like we have about 9 minutes. I don't want to move forward. Oh, there we go. Do you pay for your own license or do you pay for a site license? Good question. So my district, we do have a district license. The other, so I have a school account for that district license. But because I am a trainer for Nearpod, part of that perk is that they give me my own account. So I have access to a lot more things. And that's what I use most of the time. But you can purchase an individual one too. The other thing too is like if you've never used Nearpod before, like, and you have not set up your own account, I can give you a code that gives you, I think it's 3 months access to like the gold or whatever, that you can try it out for 3 months to see if it's something that you're interested in or that you're trying to get your institute to pay for. Can students edit their responses after they submit? They can edit their responses when they submit on the open-ended slide and on the draw it slide. Those are the two that they can, but not on a collaborative slide. I want to say not on a poll as well. Okay, Heidi, I can give that to you afterwards. Is there a free version? There is. So there's a basic, that's the silver, I think that's what it's called. Let's see, your pod licenses. And it gives you like, so it gives you that the steps, there it is. So the silver is free, but you only have 100 megabytes. So depending on how big your Nearpod decks are, determines like how many Nearpods you would actually have in your library to utilize. I can put this link in the chat so you can take a look, but there's definitely a free version. Thanks for sharing. Oh, you're so welcome. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and move on if there's no more questions for the last bit of this. And then also at the end, I will give you a link so that way you can access this entire deck in student PACE, and you'll have access to that link for an entire year. So the last one is just some tips and tricks that I wanted to give you. Just again, and I mentioned this earlier, when adding, oh no, I didn't mention this one, but when adding a Google Slide HyperDoc added as web content, what I mean by that, I guess I did not explain that. What I mean by that is, here we go. So remember this slide that I showed you where students could select which pathway they're going to. I actually created that in a Google Slide, and to add it to Nearpod so that way that these shapes are hyperlinked. The way to do it is you'll come to File, you'll come down to Publish to the Web. Now mine has already been published, but usually the button will say like start publishing. You'll click that. It'll ask you like, are you sure you want to publish this? And you'll say yes. And then you'll take that link, you'll copy it. And then when you are building, whether you're building in Google Slides or if you're building in Nearpod itself, what you'll do is you'll come to where it says web content, and you will paste that link. And you can even test it to make sure that it's going to work. And the reason why it's better to do it this way is because, one, you want these links to still work and for students to be able to access them. Two, it's a lot better than just going to, to share and then make it public for everyone to view. It will bring it up so that way it appears like the students don't see the editing part, it just has the slide there. And you can do that. Let's say you wanted to put a slide deck, like an entire Google slide presentation, like inside of a Nearpod. This is the way that you would do it. So again, you would go to the slides that you want, go to File, go down to Publish with the Web, and then take that link and add it as a web content to your slide deck. And you would also do that in Nearpod. So that's the first tip.
We got about 4 minutes left.
Okay. Again, use Publish to the Web when adding those slides for the HyperDocs. Duplicate your lessons prior to editing and creating multiple lessons, so that way you always have your original. And then lastly, add that check-in activity before the title slide to engage students. So that way the students are coming in, everyone's getting settled, someone has a question for you, and this is whether you are virtual or in person. Go ahead and add like that activity. And again, you have numerous options on what you can place there and how you want to engage students. And so lastly, I'm just always curious to know what your takeaways are. So on the slide, if you want to share your wow, your how, and your now. And you'll notice your wow is like your big takeaway. Your how is if you still have any burning questions. And your now is a personal challenge. Go ahead and do that. While you're doing that, I'm actually going to give you the link so that way you have access to this entire deck for a year for your own reference. Let me do that for you. And if you have any questions or anything, you can go ahead if you want, put it in the chat, or like I said, put it on the deck, or you can unmute yourselves. Let's see, we have 2 minutes. Let's see, here we go, student piece. Actually, I'll make a bit.ly for you to make it I'll just go ahead and paste it in. I can make it a bit.ly too. Let's see. I also made it a bit.ly. That makes it easier to remember. You are so welcome, Gloria. Good to see you again, Gloria. So let me see if any burning questions. Here we go. Where am I going to get the time to build up my presentations? That's always a big question, right? To be honest, what I do sometimes is, when I'm just like sitting doing nothing, I would be like, oh yeah, let me go ahead and like there was a lesson I wanted to build. Sometimes during my prep time, I'll like start to work on it. I don't know, it's just, I know it always comes down to time. But I think like the other thing too is like once you get into a groove of doing it, how efficient in your workflow really starts to develop. So let's see, that question, you covered a lot, just looking forward to using the pod. I hope it wasn't overwhelming. So yeah, just I always tell people, try it out first with, you're so welcome, Wayne. Try it out first with using one of their lessons, even if you don't manipulate it, right? Just use one of their lessons first time. The other thing that I didn't include in here is that Nearpod has added the video portion where you can take, they have, if you go to the library, they have videos now that if you're familiar with Edpuzzle or PlayPosit, where you can take YouTube videos, even videos that you've made, your own personal ones, that you can now bring those into Nearpod and then add an open-ended question or a poll. Yeah, open-ended in a poll there for students to answer for accountability. So that's something that's there too. I would just advise you, if you have the free version or the smaller version of Nearpod, that it does take up a lot of bandwidth, a lot of memory. So be careful with that. Just be mindful. I think we're at the time. Sorry. Let me see. Heidi, if you want to give me your email so that I can send you the code for the trial. But I know our time is up. Thank you all for coming. Oh, you just sent it. Okay. And to everyone else, thank you so much. Oh, I'll share it with you as well, Laura. If anyone else wants that code, go ahead and put your email in the chat and I'll go ahead and get that for you. But thank you all for coming. I hope it was helpful. So good to see all of you.
Thanks, Leticia. I went